We are live for a USFFL quick season review and playoff preview. Let's jump right into it. So we just got the Week 16 update a little while ago as the last game finished today. And the final standings are here. You can see them right there. Tim also posted some good summaries of the standings. We can see them right here as well. We'll break it out into conference for the moment. Number 1 seed to New England in the AFC. 12-4, beat the Jets in week 17 to earn the bid. Number 2 seed Pittsburgh. Cleveland would typically be number 3, but because they're a wild card and did not win the AFC North, they dropped down to 5. Third is the Colts. Fourth, Chiefs. Then those Browns at 5. Fourth, Chargers. Then those Browns at 5, Chiefs 6, Texans 7. In the NFC, Green Bay wins the tiebreak and gets the bye for the number 1 seed in the NFC. 2 is Seahawks. Rams will drop down to 5. New Orleans 3. And then we have the Giants at 4. And then 5 back to the Rams, 6 Bucks, and 7 San Fran. So that's the way the seedings look. How did individual performances pan out? Well, we have a few of the reports sitting right here in front of us. The league leaders, the rushing champion this year, turned out to be, as you'd expect, Derrick Henry, but it got pretty close. Dalvin Cook finished at 22.56. Henry with 25.48 in rushing yards. And then after that, it drops off by about 1,000 yards, incredibly, down to James Robinson from the first at 25.48 to James Robinson third at 16.29. So those first two, Cook and Henry, obviously separated themselves. The thing about the fourth guy, who is Chubb, is that, of course, he had a fellow 1,000-yard rusher, I believe, in Kareem Hunt, going right along with him. So there you see the rushing, and there's the rushing yards. Ronald Jones, Sanders, Elliott, Kamara, Kenyon Drake, and David Montgomery. Montgomery also finished with 18 TDs to take the number 1 rushing TD position ahead of Henry and Cook. So a nice season by David Montgomery for the Bears. Passer rating went to Ryan Fitzpatrick, 100.3 qualified. Got enough throws to be in there, and he's been up there all year. He really was never at a point where he didn't qualify. Behind him, Rodgers, and going into the last week, there was a big edge for Russell Wilson, but I think he threw 4 or 5 interceptions in Week 17, which knocked him down maybe 5-6 points in passer rating, which is hard to do this far into the season. But you have a game like that, and it happens, and he fell down to 3rd with Herbert and Mahomes bunched up behind him, and Watson right there as well before drop off to Jared Goff. So credit Scott there for taking a mediocre card and generating a 91.1 rating out of it. Derek Carr, Cousins, and Josh Allen is number 10. The other passing stats, passing attempts went to Herbert, edging out Josh Allen. Also completions tied with Deshaun Watson is Herbert, both at 447. Then TDs, Mahomes, 40. Led the way. Passing yards, however, Josh Allen, 51.67, took it over from Herbert in the last week before a drop off under 5,000. So 2 guys over 5,000, Allen and Herbert. Yards per pass, Rodgers, 8.1. That's always a very important stat. The reception title went to Keenan Allen. He sort of led wire to wire for the Chargers. And then you see in yards per catch above that, Chase Claypool, 19.5. So let's look out for that in the playoffs. Receiving TDs, Kelsey. He led most of the way, and then some others caught up with him there. A.J. Brown, yards, has been up top for a long while now. Ends with 1364, edging Darren Waller and also Devontae Adams. And then we went through the rushing, and then those TDs, guys at the top. You see a Singletary sneak in there with 10, and Justin Jackson for the Chargers to sneak in there with 13. So sort of some outliers sneak in to some of these categories here. You can sort of pick anybody to be a goal line back if you really want to. Interceptions, Jamal Dean for Tampa. You sort of look for two guys. Does any team have two guys in here? Doesn't look like that's the case for interceptions. For total points scored, Nick Folk at 145, followed by Carlson Koo. Kickoff return average, not a surprise. Pringle, 34.5. Only a yard ahead of Harris, though, and only a couple yards ahead of Roberts. So a few good kick returners out there. Punt return, good old Swasky, 25 yards punt return. Absolutely dominant. Punters, nice 1.2 yard cushion at the top. And then sacks. Cleveland, 18. Two guys in the top 10 for Garrett and 10 for Vernon. Always look for those bunches of players from the same team. So that's a quick look at the league leaders. Taking a look at some other interesting stats. Red zone efficiency. On offense, there were just a couple teams to touch 80%. Dallas at 80, Atlanta at 82, Miami at 81, and the Giants at 83. So not teams you'd expect necessarily. And they converted. They're right at the top in converting in the red zone. On defense, the league average was 75, by the way. And defense, the league average, of course, also 75, as you would expect. Did anybody touch the 60s? Yeah, a couple did. Green Bay at 69, Seattle at 65, Rams at 62, Pittsburgh finishes up at 61, so actually up a little bit from where they were. New Orleans at 69. Everybody else not in the 60s. Red zone performance can make all the difference. Total points scored. I think we just finished with that 500 squad, which is the Chargers team I coach. Yes, let's see. That's the team scoring report. Thought one other may have snuck in and jumped ahead, but does not look like that's the case. Whoops. There's grand totals. Yeah, let's see. A couple came close. We had Green Bay at 478, which is very close to the real life performance. And then you see Kansas City at 479. I think those are the two that got closest to 500. Field goals, as you'd expect. Nick Folk led the league in scoring. Did he lead the league in field goals? Looks like he did with 37. Extra points, as you'd expect there. Chargers had 59 extra points. Interesting for the Chargers, 26 rushing TDs to go with a 36 passing TDs. So we mentioned Justin Jackson before, and he had, 13? But that's a lot of rushing TDs. Compare that to KC right above. KC had more passing TDs by 4, but 12 behind in rushing. But speaking of KC, doesn't this stick out? 4 kickoff return touchdowns, 2 punt return touchdowns, and let's throw in an interception return to put the cherry on top. 7 return TDs overall, which I think led the league. You see 5 punt returns by New England. Incredible. 5 for Cincinnati in total return scores, and nobody else is even close. So big advantage, special teams advantage for Kansas City, which we've talked about before, going into the playoffs. Looking at the turnover report, the league leader in plus minus, the Los Angeles Rams, finished plus 12, 27 takeaways, tied the Colts for the lead in that category as well. On the back end, Buffalo minus 13, gave the ball away 29 times. I don't think anybody else beat that giveaway total. San Francisco came close at 28, but Buffalo at 29 and finished with negative 13. Just look at the top here. Playoff team, playoff team, playoff team, playoff team, playoff team, playoff team, not playoff team, not playoff team, playoff team, playoff team. Jacksonville finishes plus 3, interestingly. Giants in the playoffs. Tennessee missed. Pittsburgh's in. Denver's COY. But more often than not, you're going to find your playoff teams toward the top of that report. So speaking of the playoff, let's go into it. The playoffs this week get started and the COY gets started. Let's go to first the COY and take a quick look at the matchups here. Atlanta and Cincinnati both get byes. That leaves Cowboys and Philadelphia in the NFC playing again. Obviously, the third time they faced each other during the regular season. Dallas, Philadelphia. Philadelphia lost 29-26 and won 37-17. So they split. What happened in the last game? Dallas kicked the field goal, 22 seconds left to win it. Sort of back and forth. You see Philadelphia led most of the way, and then Dallas came back late in the third to take their first lead. Philadelphia took it back, and then Dallas tied it and finished it off. So we should expect a pretty good game there. I don't have the injuries up for COY, but we don't have any game times yet either, by the way. But that is the first round matchup in the NFC is an NFC East battle. And then Denver will take on Jacksonville in the AFC in the first round. The winner will get Cincinnati. I believe they did face each other this year. Let's take a look and see if that's the case. Denver. No, I guess not. Jacksonville faced a lot of teams in the division, but did not face Denver. So this will be their first matchup. Interesting matchup. I really like the offense of Jacksonville. They have the better QB here. Minshew can do a nice job of not throwing interceptions. He can do very well in flat, pretty decent in short, a little worse on long, but not bad on long. You don't have to be fearful if there are opportunities on the defensive card. That being said, Denver has a pretty good pass defense, and certainly guys good in the long pass anyway, with some, I think, 2-6 free safeties or 2-6 safeties there from passing. So Denver can put a very strong top on the defense for the Broncos. And then on offense, it's an intriguing matchup because Jacksonville gives up some run yards, and it's all over the cards for Jacksonville to do that. Pass yards too, by the way. But the combination of Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay is actually a pretty strong one. And you face a defense like Jacksonville, Denver should have a decent chance here. The overall offense, though, given the quarterback advantage, sits with Jacksonville. So looking forward to those first round games. Once you get out of that, the AFC is going to head to Cincy. NFC heads to Atlanta. And in those games, you have to say, looking at the NFC, Dallas takes on Atlanta, Philadelphia takes on Atlanta. Either one of those two interesting matchups. In the cards, Atlanta would have the edge over Philly, and it's about even versus Dallas. Cincy versus Jacksonville. Cincy slightly better D, slightly worse offense actually than Jacksonville, just slight though. So that's a pretty intriguing matchup, though. You have to give the edge to Cincy. I would say just a stronger team overall in the trenches. The Cincy Broncos matchup, edge there would go to Cincy in the cards at least. So Denver has a bit of an uphill climb. The regular playoffs get started this week, and it was a great race, down to the wire. Certainly early on, a bunch of Week 17 matchups determined playoff positions, which was a lot of fun to watch. We will start in the AFC, where this is listed in alphabetical order, so you're not seeing it in terms of seeding. The number 1 seed, New England, awaits the lowest seed winner from this week's matchups. First matchup we'll take a look at is Houston, the 7 seed, taking on the 2 seed, Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh Steelers are without TJ Watt. He'll be gone this week and back the next week. Matt Fielder's also gone, and then for Houston, Pharaoh Brown. But TJ Watt is probably the single most important injury heading into the playoffs. He not only provides pass rush, but also good defense in that linebacker spot where they have him at end this year. Forget which spot they have him in, but one of the issues with Pittsburgh, we talked a little bit on the last broadcast, is just lack of options running the ball on offense. You have to be very careful managing those carries. You're facing a defense that's pretty weak. So you can pick up cards on the other side, even if you ran a Samuels or secondary backs for Pittsburgh. You can still pick up some yards because you're facing that Houston D. But Pittsburgh does not have quite as many options as Houston does in terms of offense. Watson has a better card than Roethlisberger, one of the best cards in the set. The running backs are maybe about even. But Pittsburgh certainly has the advantage on defense and in the defensive cards, even without TJ Watt. And they're at home, which also helps. Joe has called that offense from Houston and defense from Houston, both sides, exceptionally well all year long. I don't see that changing here. There's pathways for Houston to win this game. There's no reason to think that they can't. Joe's been able to navigate that Houston team to very close contests against other playoff teams here, and wins against some in the AFC South. This is not a dominant Pittsburgh offense that's automatically going to run away from the weak defense Houston Texans. So if Houston can stay close and there's pathways for them to do it, this could go down to the wire. If I had to project this game, maybe I should give predictions here. I'm thinking it's a field goal game. Certainly single digits. I think it's gonna be a pretty close one there. The second game in the AFC is the number 3 seed is Indianapolis taking on Kansas City. Only one injury in this game, and it's for KC. Damian Wilson, not a major factor at all for the Chiefs. So these teams are essentially full strength. Kansas City finished 14-2 in the regular season last year, went to the Super Bowl. Colts won their division, I believe, and finished 11-5, lost the playoffs. In my humble opinion, the Strat cards favor Indianapolis here. I think Indianapolis has the strongest card set in the AFC. They have an exceptional runner in Jonathan Taylor. They have a strong, underrated short yards runner in Nyheim Hines, and he can also do things beyond short yardage. But his +2, getting 2 yards on a linebacker and off tackle guest right, is among the best in the set. Then Wilkins as the third back is capable. All these guys have min fumbles as well. And then you put that up against a card from Rivers, which we'll take a look at here. That given where that running game is, this is a very effective card. So just a very balanced offense. Yeah, Jonathan Taylor might be a little bit chunky. You might criticize him for that, but you know what? It kind of works for him. Kind of works. See that off tackle column? Really can't go in to run very well. So your linebacker and your off tackle, the off tackle being his best column. You know, the chunkiness, this little 3 yards, can kind of have the defense let their guard down a little bit, and boom, he'll go off on that off tackle card. It's not so chunky. The 11 long gain, 1262. That's just outrageous. Short gains dotted everywhere, enough that they're going to show up with frequency. It's just an exceptional card. Keyed +2 on 10 on off tackle. No gain on 6. They've got a keyed +1 on 7. You combine his card, and let's take a look at Hines' card, which is going to, by all appearances, going to be unspectacular to you. But don't be fooled. You combine the Taylor card with this one, and you look at this off tackle column. It's sneaky. It's sneaky good. You need 2 yards. He's got a 40-some% chance to get that. These occurrences add up. You need a yard. You go to the line buck. Yeah, these zeros sort of stand out to you. I have no problem with no gain at the goal line. Give me no gains. I'm okay with that. Just don't lose me yards. The only place he loses is on 5. He doesn't even lose a yard, of course, on off tackle 5. He does on 7. But that's an exceptional line buck guest right column when you need a yard or two. You combine that with a guy who gets yardage keyed. It's an excellent short yardage team. You put that together with Phillip Rivers' flat passing. Tough combination to stop. Then we turn to their defense, which we'll attempt to do right here. Rated excellent versus the run, average versus the pass. Look at that run card. Mint. Just beautiful. Just beautiful. The best card you ever seen? No. But wow, a very, very good card. Passing? Okay. No issue. Decent interceptions. That's all you're really looking for. Not a ton of completions. I like it. So KC, on the other hand, does not compare in terms of total offense, in my point of view, from my point of view, versus that of the Colts. And I mean, I think here's the problem with the Cards is that KC should have an outstanding offense. Yes, it's good, but it doesn't strike me as being that much better than the Chargers or that much better than the Raiders, even, right? Who have Josh Jacobs, who have a better runner to make up for the difference between Carr and Mahomes, which isn't that big, by the way. Mahomes has some blanks, 5'10", guess right, flat pass. So I actually have Indianapolis as the favorite here. Have to give them the edge in terms of predictions, just to be, intellectually honest with myself. I'm rooting for the AFC West, so I want the Chiefs to win this one, but because they're in my division. But the Cards tell me that's not going to be the case. What Casey's going to need is they're going to need this just outright steal possessions. Casey has the special teams advantage. Indianapolis does not have bad special teams by any stretch. Indianapolis also has a very good penalty card and has the penalty advantage coming into this game. But the existence of Pringle and Hardman and those touchdowns, he's going to have to steal a TD there and maybe an onside kick. to be able to hang with these, or some other sort of turnover advantage that pops up, because Rivers is not, does not have a bad interception, as you just saw a moment ago, but he's capable of throwing one guessed right. Short pass guessed right, I think it's 2 through 7. So I mean, it can happen for sure. He's going to need that to be able to hang with this team, because if the game just plays straight, Colts have it. Final score depends how the Colts play defense too. But I'll put the final score at 28-23. Indianapolis in this one. Last one in the AFC is the Chargers and the Browns. So I coach the Chargers, of course. So maybe I shouldn't give a prediction. I guess I will not. I'll give you some opinions, though. And then I think I mentioned this on a couple other broadcasts, that I had been fearing the Browns all this time. Really, I should have been fearing the Colts looking at the cards. Tom is not as endowed as Skeeter is in terms of cards, but they're very similar teams. And the Browns really do have much more punch on offense. The Browns will punish you if you guess wrong on defense. And I think we all know, but we'll take a look at the main leader of that 3-man band for the Browns, which is Nick Chubb. Here he is. Okay, so guess wrong on end run. There's lots of ways for you to get punched around. Guessed wrong on out tackle, also true. 4 guessed wrong across the board is essentially a long pass completion. Short gains across the board on 8. Long gains in every column on wrong, plus a smattering of 54 and 59 and 47 to top it off, plus some keyed yardage as well. You don't want to guess wrong with Chubb. Is he chunky? Can he fall flat and fall in some bad spells? Sure, not nearly as bad as last year's card, as you might recall. Was one of the chunkier cards you've seen since Michael Turner, going back 10 years ago. But yeah, he can end up with that +1 on the end run and things, and sort of get bogged down. But not a chance you want to take. Not something you want to leave to chance. And then you have Kareem Hunt, who's not going to hit you for the long ones, but you guess wrong off tackle, and that's the column he's usually running in. He's going to hit you with a short gain 6, 7 yards on 8. So that's either an automatic chain mover or going to move the chain soon enough on that +7, right in the wheelhouse of 6, 7, 8. So you don't want to guess wrong against those runners. And then, so what does that mean? You're going to guess run a lot? Well, not really a good idea, although there's not many long gains on the receiver cards, which matters less in this matchup because Cleveland is on the road. So the long gain is going to just not come up as much anyway, since it doesn't come up much for the receivers. It might be a little bit less of an issue, a little bit mitigated. Mayfield will make you pay when guessed wrong with a great short pass column. And 2 through 6, 2 through 6, 12 on long pass wrong. The completion double teams on 30 yards. That's a tough one to hit. But you got to guess right against this offense. And it's not as if, the team is, unstoppable on offense. They are. You guess right, you'll be okay. But just it's not so easy to guess right all the time. That's for sure. On D, compared to a Colts squad, you can certainly see a step behind are the Browns versus Cleveland, but better than the Chargers on D. Across the board, you don't see any short gains here. Giving up some chunks, but not short gains. The usual 2-0 linebacker column. Pass is where the issue is for the Chargers. These pass columns hurt. So you have this dynamic that the Chargers are going to have to sort of choose. I mean, do you want to jump to a nickel against Austin Eckler and some decent running? Chargers don't have great running, but Austin Eckler is a weapon. Do you want to jump back to a nickel and suppress the pass? Make sure you get 4 men into the zone here to wipe away that long game, wipe away that completion on 4. But there's still completions on 5 and 6. You're not getting much an interception by doing it, but you're going to save a couple completions probably throughout the game. But then you're going to lose some pass rush, and that's Cleveland's calling card is that 4-man line up against the Chargers line. You get some advantages there. So they have some choices to make on D. Flat pass column is pretty weak, and Herbert obviously is a good flat passer like many other quarterbacks. That's one of the weaker flat pass columns. One man out there. Special teams. We're going to see an issue here. Where do you? Not much in return. And the one thing that I'm not finding, of course, is the penalties. Oh, there it is. So there's an issue for the Browns. That is a bit of a lopsided penalty call. So 5 and 8 are penalties against the Browns, 11 as well, where the opponent has the offsides on 9 versus the 5. So that offsets the 5 and the 9. But the 8, the number 2 versus the opponent number 4 on 10, much more likely the 8 to come up than the 10. And you also get the 11 versus the 12, the 11 more likely to come up than the 12. So Cleveland has a penalty problem, bottom line, that could come back to get them. And then they have this 40-yard kickoff return coverage as well. So the Cleveland team is well constructed on offense. It's meant to, we saw them play action their way to success last year, and that's sort of what it is here. If you guess wrong and you fall for that fake, so to speak, then Baker Mayfield will be able to throw the ball on you. The Chargers on offense, as we talked about, have some advantages in that the Chargers can throw the ball against this Browns team. But the secret sauce of the Chargers is sort of that ability to run. We talked about those running touchdowns, a balanced approach to touchdowns. Austin Eckler and his 4.6 average in real life, better than that in strat. He's effective out here on the edge, and he's effective in the off tackle, and he's also sneaky effective on linebacker, where he can pick up a tough yard. He's the best at picking up the yard on this Charger squad, and he's not so bad in terms of ranking in the league for that as well. And then of course he can catch with his A-Yak, and then you have Balaj, who's a B-Yak. You have Justin Jackson, who's a B-Yak, and Justin Jackson may have low usage, but he's effective when running. He'll get you a 5-yard average when the low usage hits. So that's not so bad at all on a 2nd and 5 or near the goal line. And Balaj has a pretty effective off tackle column. All of them have minimum fumbles. So they're all a very safe bet as well. So it's going to be an interesting one here between the Chargers and the Browns. I think it's going to be a close one. I really think if you had to ask me, I'm not going to give you a prediction, but I have been sort of bearish on the Chargers matchup here, but I think it's going to come down to third downs. A lot of games do. I think this one is. The reason I say that, I think both teams will be in a position to score points, and it could easily reach right around that 34-30, 31-28, 34-31 sort of score. And you have to, it's where you're going to get that stop, right? Who gets the stop and who doesn't get the stop. That's gonna make the difference. So that is the AFC first round. Packers are off in week 1 of the playoffs with their bye. And the number 2 seed is Seattle with a rematch against San Francisco. And this is a game that some of you watched last week. San Francisco did a really, really nice job of getting out to a lead here and winning 23-16, holding off the Seattle push at the end. You see the lead jumped out to lead the entire game, led wire to wire, other than a 3-0 field goal of 9:18 left in the first quarter. Other than that, San Fran just took it the rest of the way, leading by as many as 17 at one point toward the end of the first half. The total yards here were 391 to 307, so Seattle ended up outgaining, as often is the case when you're trailing and trying to protect the lead. Seattle stormed back and took the yards. The yards per play, however, edge went to the 49ers, 5.7 to 5.1, as I see the Niners fumble in real life and the Cowboys take over with 4:29 left in the fourth, 23-17 San Fran. This will not matter to you listeners who listen to this later. Did Kittle make a catch? He did not. That's incomplete. No fumble. Okay. So anyway, San Francisco's yards per play edge was real, despite being behind in the yards. And you see here that Jimmy G didn't have a fantastic game. He's not capable of fantastic games, but good, 80.1. The key to the game was Russell Wilson was finding interceptions. He had 5 interceptions. So is San Francisco going to be able to repeat that? Is the first game a better view of what these two NFC West rivals can do with one another? And that was a 35-14 Seattle win. In this one, Seattle led wire to wire. Led 20-0 at one point. Let's see. 107 for Russell Wilson, threw for 278. Really led the way, 2 touchdowns. So, San Francisco with has a choice of quarterbacks that's worth taking a look at. Got C.J. Beathard with a 101.7 rating. We do not have overuse in the playoffs, so he is able to use them. Would you want to use them, everybody? Would you or wouldn't you? Interception on 9, and short pass and long pass, but they're low. Interesting card. How's that must run? What does it do for you? Not much. Not at all dynamic. I mean, it's not like it's a fantastic card, but you compare it to Jimmy G. Jimmy G completion on 3 and 12, interception 2 through 10 on 10. Jimmy G's probably going to throw you a pick. Interesting decision for San Fran at the quarterback spot. Seattle has gotten this far, 2 losses through 5 picks. You got to assume that's an aberration. I have been a fan of San Francisco since the playoff preview show. I didn't pick them to make the playoffs. I regretted that pretty much as soon as we hung up the on the call. I was very vocal that they had a path to the playoffs and a very viable path to the playoffs. Glad they made it. Nice run. But I think it's going to have to stop here. Cannot count on those sorts of turnovers again. Foreseeing Seattle pushing the ball down the field, establishing a run, finishing up here 34-17. Next one. Is third seed would be, get who the third seed is. Let's see here. Is it Tampa? No, it's got to be Tampa, New Orleans. Yeah. Tampa, New Orleans. Obviously, they have faced each other throughout the year. We spent a lot of time on the NFC South preview show talking about how well carded these two teams are. And boy, are they. Oh, by the way, need to just take a step back. In the Chargers game, the Chargers will be without Jalen Guyton at wide receiver. So the Chargers will have 3 great wide receivers, Tyron Johnson, Mike Williams, and Keenan Allen, but they lose their 4th great wide receiver in Guyton. But also have Hunter Henry, which doesn't hurt. But I can tell you that the Guyton injury and the ability not to go 4 wide does make a difference for the Chargers. Nobody's injured for Cleveland. In the Seattle game, San Francisco, failed to mention this, has 4 injuries. Greenlaw's out, Kinlaw's out, Jordan Reed is out, and Kyle Juszczyk's out. Seattle, it says 1 injury, and he'll be gone for the next 2 weeks after this, Jamal Adams. Okay, 6'6", free safety. So add it all up, San Francisco's at the disadvantage, but a big loss for Seattle, and something worth taking into account if Seattle does advance without Jamal Adams. The 49ers injuries that go beyond this week, if San Francisco pulls off the upset, will be Juszczyk and Greenlaw will be out next week as well. Adams out not only next week, but the week after if Seattle gets that far. In Tampa, New Orleans, Tampa's been struggling with injuries all year long, well documented. We've talked about it a lot. Well, here you go, Tampa. It's the tide has turned. All players available for Tampa. 3 are out for New Orleans. Janoris Jenkins, Trey Hendrickson, Ryan Rimchick is all 3 are out. Rimchick out for 2 more weeks after this. Henderson and Jenkins for 1 more week after this. If New Orleans is able to advance, it will affect the NFC brackets if they do move on. Let's see how these two teams fared against one another in the regular season. Tampa faced New Orleans in week 1. I think we broadcast that one way back in September. Maybe it was August. 28-27 win for New Orleans. So obviously super tight. In the rematch, it turned out to be a sweep for the Saints, 33-27. So 2 wins. Can they beat him a third time? I don't know. Tampa fully healthy. Ronald Jones in the backfield. Tom Brady, of course, who's had trouble when he had to throw guest pass all the time versus a game that I covered closely, the Chiefs game. With Ronald Jones back there and healthy and not subject to overuse, he provides the yin to Brady's yang that can make that Bucs offense motor against a good New Orleans defense. The issue for New Orleans is they're not going to be able to run very well against Tampa. That supreme run defense is just phenomenal. The X factor, Breeze's card is not great, so edge there for getting the QB card to Tampa as well. Kamara may be a slight edge, maybe versus Ronald Jones, who has some big gains on his card. But one of the X factors is the Tampa Bay kick return, which has been a real thorn in the side of Tampa. We'll take a look at that in a second. Quick look at Brady's card. Just remember this as you move on to looking at Breeze. You see the completion here on 8 and 10, long gain, good flat pass, good short pass, very Herbert-like, really, without the must runs, but a better short pass column. Then Ronald Jones is the one worth watching, which not everybody's going to be familiar with this card, so it's worth looking at. 25 yards here, 98 yards there, 8 and 6 can move the chains. Short gain here, short gain in the middle if you want to go after a short gain with long gain at the top. Long gain at the top here. I mean, he's a very, very dangerous runner. Very dangerous. Compare those two to the battery over in New Orleans. Here's Kamara. We'll go there first. Short gain, bonanza. Not as much pop. I would take that Kamara card, I would guess. You see, very good receiver. So edge there to Kamara. But not anything major and does not offset this disadvantage for New Orleans. So the long gain only on 9 so instead of 8-10. That's a pretty big disadvantage. Flat pass advantage, yes. Short pass disadvantage. Edge for Tom Brady here. Not massive, but you see higher interceptions than usual for Breeze as well. The kickoff returns for Tampa. Let's take a look. I think that's where, because the Saints have returners. So where am I going? Okay, opponent kick is right here, 53 and 50 on 7 and 8. Ouch. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Pretty good penalty card. Compare that or take a look at New Orleans returners. Deontay Harris, second in the league, up over 30 yards to return. Nice card, long as 75. Callaway, no problem running him out too. And then punt return Deontay Harris. Look at that, 29 yards on 9 right there. Oh, by the way, 18 yards here. So That's New Orleans' pathway to victory is a return team advantage. Otherwise, Tampa Bay has the edge. It should be a good one. New Orleans seems to have Tampa's number. I'm going to bet the special teams comes up big here and sneaks New Orleans out with a win that's going to be a 34-31 New Orleans win. But it's going to be close. Could go either way. Doesn't get a special teams break, then it won't happen. The last game of the week, the Giants and the Rams. Don't believe they faced each other in the regular season. Let's take a look there as that switches over, looking at the injuries. Only one injury. It's for the Giants. Austin Mack is just out for this week. The Rams are coming to the game healthy. The Rams versus the Giants. Let's see here. Right there. Rams lost to the Giants in the regular season, 18-14. Isn't that interesting? Someone said that to me before on broadcast. I just forgotten. Sorry about that. 331 for the Rams, 271, and a nice big yards per play advantage for the Rams. So what went awry? We had fumble for the Giants, no fumbles for the Rams, but 2 picks by Jared Goff. Giants scored with 8 minutes left to take the lead. We're down all game. That 2-point conversion to make it 14-11. Yeah. With a minute left in the third, and then scored that final. So it seems like the Rams maybe had some bad red zone performance here. Let's take a look at the Rams red zone. Red zone. Oh, okay. They only got in the red zone once. Where the Giants got in the red zone 5 times. So maybe it's a bend don't break defense for the Giants, managing to keep the Rams out. Any missed field goals for the Rams? Yeah, 0 for 1. Well, Graham Gano was 1 for 1. Let's see what the write-up has to say. Fourth for lead. Okay, not telling me anything. Yeah. So it seems to me that, how about the 4th down conversions? 0 for 0 for the Rams. Interesting. You'd assume with not that many field goal attempts and being down in the 4th quarter that they would have attempted some 4th downs. Didn't. The Rams ended up punting 5 times. So did the Giants. Field position advantage was definite one for the Giants. They start 35 versus the 28 for the Rams. Interesting. Well, you have Daniel Jones. Not a card that everybody's familiar with. Let's take a quick look at his card and the battery for these Giants. Daniel Jones, good end run, good flat pass, good must run, not much deep, couldn't throw a pick for sure. And then we're pairing him up. We've got Gallman, Alfred Morris, Deion Lewis. Gallman, I think it's the most carries. 147. Nice card, guessed wrong. Not so much going on, guessed right. Comparing that to a card you may not see often too, which is Jared Goff. 2 capable runners for the Rams. Nice flat pass, decent enough short pass. Not some popping at the 10. There's something there. It's not blanks on a long pass. So an edge for the Rams here. Rams also have the edge on defense. Rams should be able to pull this out at home. Probably going to be another slugfest. We'll call this one Rams 20, Giants 14. And that covers us for the playoffs and the first round and the coach of year. Good luck to everybody this week. We'll have the Browns and the Chargers kicking off tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern for the first game that I'm aware of, the playoffs. Maybe another one sneaks in at 7. But as of now, we got a game on Monday, Chargers, Browns. I assume it will be broadcast. Not sure. We had to get it in just because of work considerations on Monday. So hopefully there'll be a broadcast. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.